I was just looking for a deal, that's all. My old laptop had fried after one too many coffees spilled across the keyboard. And with rent due and freelance gigs stacking up, I didn't exactly have the luxury of buying a new one. So when I saw the listing, MacBook Pro, like new $250 OBO, I jumped. The guy selling it said his little brother had upgraded and left this one behind. Barely used, he'd said over text. Still has files on it, but nothing crazy. Just wipe it, and you're good. I met him in the parking lot of a Home Depot. He handed it over, gave a casual, hope it works for you, and sped off in a rusted-out Honda. Seemed harmless. I should have known then. Back at my apartment, I booted it up. The thing was definitely old, a little slow, but not bad. No password on the home screen. Just a single user account, M. Curious, I clicked into the files before I started the wipe. There were no games, no school projects, no clutter. Just one folder on the desktop. Private, do not open. Come on. Of course I opened it. Inside were subfolders named by dates. Month, day, year. Each one containing videos. Hundreds of them. No names, no explanations, just time-stamped clips. I opened one at random. It was grainy at first, webcam quality, shot in what looked like a dorm room. A guy in a hoodie, maybe early 20s, sat at the edge of his bed, fidgeting with a Rubik's Cube. He didn't know he was being filmed. Not in that moment, anyway. I watched him for about 3 minutes before he stood up, stretched, pulled his hoodie off, and my stomach tightened. He was beautiful, lean, defined. Messy dark hair, a little bit of stubble. The kind of guy you never want to see changing because you know your brain's going to store that image forever. I clicked on another video. Same guy, same room. This time he was shirtless, lying on his bed, scrolling through his phone. The camera was still, like it had been set up to record passively. But something about the way he shifted, how his hand moved lower, the way he bit his lip, it was clear this one wasn't accidental. I clicked out. My heart was pounding, and I had no idea why. Okay, so some guy made videos of himself. Big deal. But why were they all on here? Why hadn't the seller wiped the hard drive? And why couldn't I stop watching? Over the next 2 hours, I went down a rabbit hole. Not all the clips were sexual. Some were just him talking to the camera, like vlogs. One day he was ranting about a roommate stealing his food. Another day he was talking about how he didn't think anyone would ever love him. That one stuck with me. It was quiet. Honest. His voice was low. Deep. He talked with his hands. I know I'm not like model hot, he said at one point, shirt off, sitting cross-legged on the bed. But I'm not ugly either, right? I don't know. It's just weird. Sometimes I feel invisible. And sometimes I wish I was. I didn't know this guy. But I was starting to feel like I did. There was no name on the videos, no tags, no metadata. But one of the last folders had a single video file, the most recent. I hovered over it for a full minute before I clicked. The screen lit up with that same room, but it looked different now. Cleaner, brighter. And the guy, M, he was standing by the window, looking out. He turned to the camera after a moment, and this time, it wasn't like the others. This time, he was speaking directly to me. Hey, if you're watching this, he paused, rubbed the back of his neck. Then I guess he bought the laptop. I froze. I know, weird, right? I didn't think I'd ever actually do this, but I couldn't delete the videos. I don't know why. Part of me hoped someone would find them. Not just for the nudes, he smirked, but because, I don't know. I think I just wanted to be seen. He sat on the edge of the bed. I'm leaving. Not like forever. Just starting over. Somewhere new. I gave this laptop to my brother. Told him to get rid of it. Sell it. Whatever. And if you're watching this, then that means you're curious. That means you opened the folder. He leaned closer to the camera. So here's my deal. If you watched this far and you're not creeped out or bored or whatever, reach out. My info's in a text file called "Look Here." Tell me what you think. Or don't. Up to you. He gave a half smile. Nervous. Soft. And if you do reach out, tell me your favorite video. Then the screen went black. I stared at my reflection in the dark screen, suddenly aware of how silent my apartment was. I didn't know what the hell I was feeling. But I was definitely going to open that text file. The file was named exactly as he said, "Look here." A plain .txt doc sitting just below the private Do Not Open folder. I clicked it. Inside was a short note. "Hey, if you made it here, you're either a creep or curious, or both. Either way, I'm not mad. Life's weird. If you want to talk, message me. Here's the number, 503-7XX-4XM. I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking like it was waiting for me to do something brave. Message him? A total stranger? A guy I'd just spent the last hour basically spying on? It felt wrong. But it didn't feel bad. I opened my phone, typed the number in, then hesitated. What the hell was I even going to say? "Hi, I bought your old laptop and watched you talk about being lonely and also jerk off sometimes." I locked my screen, walked away, poured a glass of water I didn't need, paced the living room, sat back down. Then I did it. I messaged him. Me. "Hey, this is probably weird, but I bought your old laptop." Me. "I watched some of the videos." "And your message." Me. "Sorry if that's invasive." I didn't mean to pry. Me. "I just couldn't stop watching." I set my phone face down and walked away again. I couldn't sit still. When it buzzed, my heart dropped. I picked it up. "M. You actually texted." "M. Didn't think anyone would." "M. Which video did you like?" That question hit harder than I expected. It felt personal, intimate. Me. The one where you talk about feeling invisible. Me. That one felt real. Me. I guess I get it. He didn't reply right away. When he finally did, it was just, "M. What's your name?" Me. "Aaron. You?" M. "Mateo." "Mateo." It fit. It sounded like him. Calm, maybe a little guarded. There was something warm about it. We kept texting that night. At first, it was surface stuff. Where I lived. What I did for work. He asked if I had roommates. I told him no. Asked if I was single. I said yes. Then the conversation drifted. "Mateo, did you watch all of the videos?" Aaron. "Not all, but a lot." Mateo. "Any others stand out?" Aaron. "The one where you say you don't think anyone would love you." Mateo. "Jesus, you really watched them." Aaron. "You said to." He didn't reply for a while after that. I thought I'd gone too far. That maybe I'd pushed some invisible line he hadn't expected someone to cross. But then, Mateo. That one was hard to film. Mateo. Harder to admit to myself than to say out loud. Mateo. I think I just wanted to know if someone would care. I stared at that last text for a long time. Aaron. I did. Another pause. Then, Mateo. You're not what I expected. Aaron. What did you expect? Mateo. I don't know. Some bored perv. Or worse, a straight dude trying to blackmail me. Aaron. Not my style. Mateo. Good. It was almost 2 a.m. by the time we stopped texting. Not because I wanted to stop, but because I realized I'd been sitting in the dark for over 3 hours. I closed the laptop gently and set it aside like it was some sacred thing now. I didn't know what I wanted from Mateo, or where this was going, but I knew one thing. I hadn't felt this connected to anyone in years, and I wasn't ready to stop talking to him. The next day, I tried to focus on work. I really did. But every time I pulled up Illustrator or checked my emails, I'd glance over at the laptop. His laptop. Like it might buzz or blink or do something magical. It didn't. He didn't text either. I told myself it was fine. We'd had a long, deep conversation the night before. Maybe he needed space. Maybe he regretted opening up. Maybe I should just mind my own damn business. But late that night, just after I'd crawled into bed and was about to plug in my phone, it buzzed. Mateo, I've been thinking about you all day. I stared at it. My stomach flipped. Aaron, yeah? What about me? Mateo, about how weird this is. Mateo, and how not weird it feels. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Aaron, same. He sent a selfie next. No shirt. Just a grainy shot of him in bed, half lit by his bedside lamp. He looked a little flushed, maybe from the heat, maybe from nerves. His hair was messy, eyes soft. Mateo, not trying to be sexy, just figured you've already seen me at my worst. Mateo, thought I'd show you something real. Aaron, you look good. Aaron, like, calm. Mateo, you make me feel calm. That's not something I say often. We texted for another hour, and something about it felt so easy, so unlike the stiff, polite conversations I usually had on dating apps where it's all posturing and pretending. He wasn't pretending with me. He didn't need to, and neither did I. The next night, it happened again. This time, I sent the first message. Aaron, I rewatched one of your videos. Mateo, which one? Aaron, the one where you fall asleep on camera. Aaron, you look peaceful. Mateo, I forgot that one was in there. Mateo, you really watched them all, huh? Aaron, I think I'm starting to feel like I know you. Mateo, you kind of do. Then he asked me something I didn't expect. Mateo, can I ask something kind of personal? Aaron, shoot. Mateo, have you ever watched someone you care about when they didn't know? That stopped me. Aaron, not like in a creepy way. Aaron, but yeah, I've stared too long. Aaron, at guys I couldn't have. Aaron, wish they'd look at me back. Mateo, yeah, that. He sent another message before I could respond. Mateo, I think that's what those videos were, in a way. Mateo, me looking for someone who might look back. I read that again. And again. This wasn't about intimacy. Not really. It wasn't about exhibitionism or being seen naked or admired. It was about intimacy, being known. Aaron, I see you now. No reply for 5 minutes. Then, Mateo. That made my chest hurt in a good way. The next day he called me. I didn't even know he would. My phone buzzed and there it was. Mateo, incoming call. I answered, heart racing. Hey, I said, my voice a little too soft. Hey, he echoed. I wasn't sure if I should call. I'm glad you did. There was a silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was warm. You sound different than I imagined, he said. Yeah, better or worse, he chuckled. Better, deeper. You sound like someone I could fall asleep next to. I swallowed. My throat went dry. I've been thinking about that, I admitted. What it would be like, in real life. To sleep next to me? To know you. For real. Another pause. Then his voice dropped lower. Would you come see me? I sat up straighter. What? I know it's fast. I know we're just two strangers passing text messages through a digital time capsule, but I want to meet you. I want to know what your face looks like when you're not behind a screen. My heart felt like it was pounding in my ears. Where are you? I asked. Portland, he said. You? Seattle. Okay, so that's like a 3-hour drive. 3 hours. I could do that. He must have heard the hesitation in my silence. You don't have to, he said quickly. I wanted to ask. You don't owe me anything. I want to, I said, cutting him off before he could walk it back. He laughed, quiet and relieved. Okay, so this weekend? I hung up the phone and stared at the laptop. The same screen I'd booted up just to find a cheap replacement for my fried Mac. Now it felt like a window into something I never expected. A connection, a person, a possibility. And in 3 days, I'd be standing in front of him for the first time. Whatever came next, I knew this wasn't just some weird story about buying a used laptop. This was the beginning of something. Saturday morning, I packed like I was going to meet a celebrity. New jeans, Favorite hoodie. A flannel just in case. 3 different colognes. I sniffed each on my wrist like some desperate perfume counter zombie until I finally just said, screw it, and wore deodorant and clean skin. This wasn't a hookup. It was something else. The drive to Portland was quiet. Just the hum of the engine and my overactive brain running every possible scenario. What if he didn't look like his videos? What if the vibe was weird? What if this whole connection only worked through a screen? And then the darker fear. What if I liked him more than he liked me? I pulled up to the address he'd texted me. A little craftsman-style duplex on a quiet street, tucked under a canopy of yellowing leaves. Portland was cooler than Seattle that weekend, a little gray, like the sky was holding its breath. I sat in the car for a second before grabbing my bag and heading up the walk. The door opened before I knocked. Mateo. He was barefoot, wearing joggers and a long-sleeve tee that hung off one shoulder like he'd just gotten out of bed. And maybe he had. His hair was a little messy, face still soft from sleep, eyes half-lidded, and still, he smiled like he'd known me forever. Hey, he said, hey. For a second, we just looked at each other. No phone screens, no buffering videos, just us. You're taller than I thought, he said, leaning in for a hug. You're warmer than I thought, I said, hugging him back. He laughed into my shoulder. I'm nervous as hell. Same. He pulled back and looked at me. Really looked. But you came. I couldn't not. Inside, his place was clean but lived in. Plants on every windowsill. A blanket draped haphazardly over the back of the couch. Dishes drying in a rack. There was a smell. Cedar, maybe, or something woodsy and warm. I dropped my bag by the door and turned to face him. So, I started, suddenly feeling 12. He raised an eyebrow. So, this is weird, right? Completely. He grinned. But also, kind of perfect? We ended up sitting on the couch, not too close. Just enough to feel each other's presence. He poured us tea. We talked. About nothing at first. And then everything. He told me how he started filming himself during a really lonely stretch in college. How it began as a kind of diary. Something private. And then I started uploading them to a private cloud, he said, looking down into his mug. No names, no tags, just me. It made me feel like I was real. Like someone out there might see me and, I don't know, get me. And now, here I am, I said quietly. He looked up. Yeah, now here you are. That night, we didn't sleep together. Not because we didn't want to, but because we didn't want to rush it. We stayed up watching a movie, which neither of us really paid attention to. His arm found its way across the back of the couch. My head eventually rested on his shoulder. It felt natural. Somewhere around 2 a.m., he said, "You want to crash in my bed? I'll take the couch." No way, I said. If anyone's taking the couch, it's me. He gave me a long look. Then, or we could just share it. I hesitated. You sure? Yeah, he said. You don't snore, right? Not unless I'm drunk. He laughed. Then you're safe. His room was dark and soft, everything smelling like laundry and eucalyptus. We both climbed into bed slowly, almost cautiously, like neither of us wanted to disturb the magic of the day. For a while, we just lay there, back to back, not touching. But I could feel the heat radiating from him, the closeness. Then, in the dark, his voice. Aaron? Yeah. I keep thinking this is gonna go away, that I'm gonna wake up, and you'll be gone. Or worse, never have come. I'm here, I whispered. I'm not going anywhere. A pause. Then I felt his hand brush against mine under the blanket. Hesitant. Testing. I reached back, laced our fingers together. He let out a breath like he'd been holding it for hours, and that's how we fell asleep. Hand in hand, in the dark. No cameras, no screens. Just us. I woke up to warmth. Not just the kind from thick blankets or morning sun, but something more alive, solid, real, pressed lightly against me. For a moment, I didn't open my eyes. I just let myself feel it. Mateo's body was curled behind mine. His arm was draped across my waist, His breath was steady and slow, warm against the back of my neck. I couldn't move. Not because I was scared, but because I didn't want to. It had been so long since someone had held me in their sleep like this. Not lustful, not rough, just safe. Eventually, he stirred. I felt his fingers twitch, then his breath catch, like he was realizing what he'd done. He slowly started to pull away, but I reached back and covered his hand with mine. "It's okay," I murmured. "I don't mind." He didn't say anything, but I felt his fingers tighten slightly around mine. That was answer enough. We stayed in bed longer than we probably should have. Talking. Laughing. Touching. Not in the way that usually follows two people sharing a bed, but in smaller, quieter ways. He'd run his thumb along the inside of my wrist. I'd brush his hair back when it fell into his eyes. At one point he asked, "Is this real, or are we just high on weird timing and loneliness?" I looked at him and said, "I don't know, but I want to find out." The shift started around midday. After brunch, eggs, toast, terrible coffee, we were back in the living room. I was sitting on the floor, leaning against the couch, scrolling aimlessly while he played with the drawstring on his hoodie. "You know," he said, "it's weird not being behind the camera with you." I glanced up. "You miss being recorded?" He smiled, shy. "I miss feeling watched, but not in a creepy way, in a you see me kind of way." "I see you," I said again, echoing what I'd texted nights ago. He leaned forward, bracing his arms on his knees. "Would you watch me again?" The question caught me off guard. Not because it was inappropriate, but because of how softly he asked it. I set my phone down. "Right now?" He nodded. "Not like, to perform. Just sit with me. Look at me. Let me be seen." So I did. He sat on the rug in front of me, legs crossed, head tilted. I looked at him. Not at his chest or his jawline or the way his lips parted when he was nervous. I looked at the way he breathed, the rise and fall, the tiny flickers of tension that lived behind his eyes, even when he smiled. "You're not what I expected," he said after a while. "Why?" "I don't know. I think I expected someone who just wanted to see me naked." "You were naked in, like, half the videos." I teased. He laughed, head tipping back. But I didn't expect someone who would see past that. I wanted to touch him then, not sexually, just touch. I wanted to let my hand rest on his cheek, or run my fingers through his hair. I wanted to let him feel what I couldn't quite say out loud yet, but instead I said, "Come here." He leaned closer. I kissed him. It was soft, tentative. His lips were slightly chapped from sleep. He kissed back slowly, like he was afraid to ruin the moment. But when our foreheads touched afterward, I could feel his smile against my skin. "I've wanted that since the second you texted me," he whispered. "Then why wait?" "Because this matters." We didn't have that day. We fooled around a little, yeah. A slow, explorative kind of messing around, hands under shirts, mouths lingering in new places. But when things got too fast, he pulled back. Not nervously, not ashamed, just clear. "Not yet," he whispered. "I want to remember it all. I want it to mean something." I kissed his shoulder. "Okay." That night, we lay in bed again. This time, I pulled him against me. And this time, when I said, "I see you," I knew he finally believed me. The next morning was gray and rainy. The kind of slow, drizzly Portland weather that makes you want to stay under the covers and pretend the world doesn't exist. Mateo was already up when I opened my eyes. He was sitting on the windowsill, hoodie draped over his frame, knees pulled up, mug in his hands. His face was soft, distant. He didn't notice me watching him. When I finally sat up, he glanced over and smiled. Not wide, not performative. Just a quiet curve of the lips, like, "Thanks for being here." "Did I wake you?" he asked. "No, I just didn't want to miss that view." He looked confused, then caught me staring at him instead of the window. "Shut up," he said, blushing a little. "We made coffee. Talked about nothing. The way people do when they like the sound of each other's voice more than what's being said." But I could feel it. Something was weighing on him. Eventually, as we sat on the couch, legs tangled, sharing a blanket and our third round of lukewarm coffee, he said it. I should tell you why I left school. I didn't push. I just nodded. He shifted, staring down into his mug. There was this guy, he said, from one of my classes. His name was Drew. I said nothing. Let him move at his own pace. He was cool, confident, kind of magnetic. Everyone wanted to be around him, and for a while, he picked me. We started hanging out, then more. He paused. It was secret. Of course, he wasn't out. Said he never would be. But with me, behind closed doors, he was different. Soft. Sweet, even. He drew in a slow breath. And then one night, someone saw us. We didn't even do anything. Just kissed. A quick one. But it was enough. I could already feel where this was going. By Monday, there were whispers. Then screenshots. Someone had found my private folder on the dorm network, videos, clips, just me talking to my camera. Nothing crazy, but enough to make me the school freak. Jesus, I murmured. He ghosted me, Mateo continued. Drew acted like he barely knew me, said I was obsessed, told people I made it all up. He finally looked at me then, eyes raw, like he'd ripped something open just to let me look inside. I couldn't walk across campus without hearing my name in a sentence I didn't start. I'd go to class and feel people watching, whispering. And no one helped? He shook his head. A few professors reached out, asked if I needed support, but they didn't really get it. They saw it as bullying. I saw it as being erased. I moved closer, rested my hand on his leg. That's why I gave away the laptop, he said. I couldn't delete the videos. They were me. But I also couldn't look at them anymore. So you let someone else find them. He nodded, and then you did. There was a long silence. Not heavy, just honest. You deserved better, I said quietly. I know, he said, voice steady now, but it took me a while to believe that. We sat there, the hum of the rain filling the quiet. Then he added, softer, and now you're here, watching me. But not like they did. Not like them, I said. Never like them. Later that day, we went for a walk. Hoodies up, hoods soaked, shoes wet. But we didn't care. It was good to move, to be outside, to be side by side in the world. At one point, Mateo stopped under a giant cedar tree. Looked at me. Really looked. You still want to be here? He asked. Now that you know everything? I didn't hesitate. I didn't come here for the guy in the videos, I said. I came for the guy who made them. The guy who wanted to be seen. He stepped forward. I want to be seen by you, he whispered. Then he kissed me. This time, slower, longer. The kind that makes the world blur around the edges. The kind that anchors you to a moment so hard it leaves a mark. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine and said, Stay one more night? I'll stay as long as you want, I whispered back. That night, we didn't bother pretending. No movie. No long conversations about music or childhood memories or what-ifs. We just looked at each other. And for the first time, I saw no hesitation in Mateo. No flinching. No apology. Just that slow-burning certainty in his eyes as he sat beside me on the bed, fingers brushing mine. Still want to stay? He asked again, though this time the question wasn't about sleep. I'm not going anywhere, I said. Not unless you want me to. He didn't answer, just leaned in, kissed me soft and deliberate. There was something different about it now. The first time we kissed, it was cautious, like we were checking if the moment could hold the weight we were about to place on it. This kiss, this one knew. It knew we'd talked enough. Knew we'd waited, watched, wondered. It knew how long we'd both gone unseen. It knew how many nights we'd each spent thinking we were too much, or not enough, or just permanently in between. This kiss wanted answers, and then refused to ask questions. His shirt came off first. I'd seen his body before. On screen, lit by grainy webcam light usually framed by the edge of a twin bed and dorm walls plastered in old posters. But now I could touch. I ran my hands across his back, his ribs, the small hollow between his neck and collarbone. He shivered, not from cold. "I've never let anyone do this slowly," he murmured against my jaw. "Then let's take our time," I said. And we did. Every movement was deliberate. No rush, no checklist, just contact, breath, heat, skin. When his hand slipped under my shirt, he paused. "You're shaking," he whispered. "Yeah," I said, nervous. He looked at me like I'd just told him something sacred. Me too. There's something about undressing for someone when it's not just about love things, when it's about trust, about standing in front of someone and letting them see not just the angles and curves, but the scars, the hesitations, the years of silence wrapped around your ribs like armor. I watched him look at me, not with hunger, with awe, and that did something to me I wasn't ready for. When we finally lay back against the sheets, tangled and breathless, he ran a thumb along my jaw and whispered, "You feel like home." I couldn't speak. Because it did. It did. For once, being naked didn't feel like being vulnerable. It felt like being chosen. Afterward, we didn't move much. Just lay there, our legs twisted together under the blanket. The room was dark, but I could still make out the slope of his nose, the shape of his lips, the way his fingers absent-mindedly traced circles on my chest like he was drawing a map he didn't want to forget. I should have been exhausted, but I felt wide awake, anchored, full. "I was scared you'd think I was broken," he said after a long stretch of quiet. "You're not," I said, kissing the top of his head. He looked up at me. "I think I want you to keep the laptop." I blinked. "Matteo." "No, I mean it," he said. "It's not just a machine. It's everything I used to think I had to keep hidden. And now, it's how we met. How you found me." I sat up a little, propping myself on one elbow. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "Let it be yours now. Let it be ours." I reached for his hand. "Then you better be okay with me watching the videos again." He laughed, pulling me back down beside him. "Only if you promise to make new ones. With me this time." 3 months later, the laptop sat closed on my desk. Not because I didn't use it, but because I didn't need it the way I used to. It had become more like a book I knew by heart. I still opened it sometimes when I missed him or when I wanted to remember the way we first began. But most days, I didn't have to scroll through videos to feel close to him. Because Mateo wasn't on my screen anymore. He was in my kitchen, pouring coffee. He was in my bed, stealing the covers. He was in my shower, singing badly. And he was in my life, everywhere. We hadn't rushed anything after that weekend. Well, maybe a little. He visited me in Seattle the next week. I drove back to Portland the week after. Then again the next. And by the end of that first month, we both quietly admitted we were sick of watching each other leave. So he moved in. Not all at once. It started with a drawer, then a toothbrush, then his favorite hoodie hanging on the back of my desk chair. Until one day, he was just here. And it felt like he'd always been. Some nights, we still talk about how weird it was, how unlikely. "You bought a used laptop," he says, every time like it's still hard to believe. "You could have wiped it and never known who I was." But I didn't, I always say. "You watched everything." "And I'd do it again." He'll roll his eyes at that, pretend he's annoyed. But I know better. Because then he'll kiss me. Or touch my face like it's the only thing in the world he trusts. And I'll remember that this was never just about curiosity or loneliness or desire. It was about recognition. One night, I found him filming again. Not in secret. He'd set up his phone on the edge of the bed, propped against a book. I walked in, shirtless, toothbrush in hand. "What are you doing?" "Recording," he said. "For me, for us." I sat beside him, spitting toothpaste into a tissue. "What are you saying?" He shrugged. "Nothing yet. Just wanted to capture the quiet." And then he turned to me. "But if I did say something, it would probably be this." He adjusted the phone, made sure we were both in the frame. Then he looked right into the lens. "My name's Mateo, and 3 months ago I left part of myself in an old laptop. I thought I was just giving up a machine. Turns out, I was leaving a message for someone I hadn't met yet." He turned to me, smiling. "This is Aaron. He's the one who found me. And somehow, he saw everything. And he didn't run. He stayed." He kissed my cheek. "He's still here. And I hope he always will be." I swallowed hard. Mateo looked back at the camera. "If you're out there watching this," he said, "and you feel invisible or too messy or like no one will ever really get you, don't stop hoping. Sometimes the person who sees you comes from the last place you'd expect." He turned the camera off, then turned to me. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "I just didn't know I'd cry during your monologue." He grinned and kissed me slow, deep. And I knew in that moment, whatever this was, however long it lasted, it was real. It was ours. It started with a file on a forgotten laptop. And it became the best decision I ever made.